Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Wander and Muse, the podcast that shines a spotlight on local artists and designers and providing them with a space to showcase their creations, their tips, and their philosophies. Today's guest is photographer Ray Cleveland. Hello, Ray.
Hi,
How's it going today?
it's going great.
We've had so many great monsoons lately. I know you're out there
hmm
probably taking some of those lightning shots, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I heard that great interview you had with Christopher Conover on
Yeah,
AZPM.
that was so much fun.
Yeah, that's great that they reached out to you and you had that. That's fantastic. So, for the listeners who aren't already familiar with your work, go ahead and share a little bit about your photography.
Yes, my name is Ray Cleveland. I've been a photographer for quite a long time now.
What's quite a long time?
Um,
10 years, 20 years?
I think I really started pursuing it as a passion in about 2014.
Okay.
I've been a photographer prior to that, but that is the year where I kind of count as a cornerstone of turning into really pursuing it
Okay.
as an art form.
Right. Not
And
just for fun, but really
yeah,
getting into it.
I mean, prior to that, I would take a lot of pictures of my friends. I bought my first DSLR in 2008.
Okay.
I had a bunch of darkroom equipment prior to digital, and I've always been into photography. But I consider 2014. I went on a trip to Yellowstone,
Oh, yeah, that's great
and
photography
it
there.
really got me into landscape photography.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided I was going to commit myself more to it and put myself on a 365-day challenge
Oh,
to
that's a good one.
create a new photo every single day. And I really think that kickstarted uh, my talents, and
Right.
like practice, I believe, is probably the most important piece of talent in my opinion. Like,
With anything, whether it's a yoga practice,
hmm
whether it's writing. I remember one year, probably around 2014. Now that you
yeah,
say that, I did just to challenge myself to sit at the computer and every day and get my creative juices flowing. I
hmm
did 365 days of bad poetry,
oh geez.
where I would pull a photo of something I had taken anytime throughout that
hmm
year and I would write a haiku about it or whatever. And it
I
really
think I
did.
yeah.
Do you remember
I
those
think I
days?
might remember a hint of that. Did anything good come out of it? You say bad poetry,
Right.
but
What was good was it really just kind of kept my creative
oh yeah.
juices flowing. But I think it's important for everyone to just form those habits, really, because
hmm
those practices then become so second nature
Yeah.
that you're thinking less about it and you're just doing it. And
hmm
that's when it really is that passion that takes over. Tell me, that 2014 with Yellowstone, that was very pivotal for you. And what do you think, why was it then that really just kind of tapped into something for
Um,
you?
I just really well, I bought myself a cheap zoom lens,
Mm-hmm.
and I wound up photographing a lot of the wildlife out there,
Right.
which really sold me on that idea. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
The landscapes were gorgeous,
And all the
and
sulfur smells and all
and
those amazing
yeah,
colors in the sulfur
and it was
place.
also the most stars I've ever seen in the night sky out there. It's so separated from a lot of cities and everything.
Exactly.
And I took some of my first astro photos out there.
Hmm.
And I didn't really have the gear for it or know what I was doing, but it definitely sparked. But like, wow, I took a picture of the stars,
Right.
and that got me going in that field of photography. And I really consider that as like a pivotal point where
Right.
I started to get the ball rolling into what is now a full time photography career. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. Because when I first met you, were you doing coding or developing? What was your
Yeah,
role?
I was a programmer for about
Programmer.
15 years or
Right.
so. I still love doing it. Every once in a while, I'll write some code and
So
get a
you,
taste of it, and I'm like, oh, I still love this stuff. But
right.
it, it's similar. It's kind of it doesn't seem like it would be, but to some folks, I imagine. But it kind of is a very creative pursuit in as well.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
aren't there still, compositions and balance and rhythms and patterns that
yeah,
you notice through coding?
yeah, there's a lot of lot of creativity within the problem solving of that.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways. It's a blank canvas
Right.
of how to solve every problem. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. I've always had creative endeavors throughout
Hmm.
my life, and that was a really fun one for quite a few years.
Right. Now, were you a creative kid, you're saying?
Yes,
And now, do you feel like you got that from either one of your parents, or, is it like in your DNA, or was it something that you just kind of,
they definitely encouraged it.
uh-huh,
I'm yeah, I know both of my parents are creative, and
uh-huh,
they don't really have create. Well, I don't know. I suppose you consider like some construction and such
sure.
like as a creative
Yes, for sure.
endeavor. But yeah, it was. They definitely encouraged me when I was a kid for pursuing art, and
That's fantastic.
I did summer classes on how to make comic books and
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
good.
all that fun stuff.
Definitely.
I was one of, I remember in college I was in a 3D art course,
Hmm.
which I wound up not really being too good at, but I was one of the, I think, two students. They pulled the class on like the first day saying how many of you can draw, and I
Okay.
was one of two
Oh,
that
okay.
could actually draw in that
Hmm.
class. Maybe that was a sign that I don't know that wouldn't be as good at 3D art, but it, but yeah, I did find it interesting that that wasn't necessarily a prerequisite for that sort of
No,
creativity.
exactly. And just having that understanding, that innate sense of spatial relations and the
Hmm.
balance and all that, it's all really related to each
Yeah.
other, definitely. Can you remember, when did you sell your very first photograph?
Oh, I don't know if I remember. I'm pretty sure 2015 may have been the first few freelance photo shoots I did. I believe, and then 2016 was the first wedding I ever shot as a
Hmm.
primary photographer. Yeah, we did an amazing job.
That's
It
great.
was really fun.
And your portfolio is pretty vast. I mean, you've already
Hmm.
talked about the astrophotography with, shots of the Milky Way and that sort of thing, but then you also do the weddings,
Hmm.
portraits, landscapes.
Yes.
Talk a little bit more about the scope of your photography.
I'm definitely a jack of all trades
Mm-hmm.
sort of photographer. I just love any sort of challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Storms have been currently on the forefront because the monsoon season is happening right now,
Right.
and I've been really happy to learn a lot from my photography practices.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I go out and shoot wildlife and take a picture of a bird, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't even know what that bird is,
Mm-hmm.
but then I'll post it, and the internet will teach me like,
That's
oh,
fantastic.
that's specific, and
Right.
it's
The elusive trogon.
yeah. I actually that's one of my best like amateur birding
Oh,
stories
really? Were you
is
down by Santa Rita Lodge?
yeah, I had seen some friends photograph it, and I was like, oh, I want to try to photograph that bird.
Yeah,
But
they're
and I
beautiful.
started getting hot tips, being like, oh, they're nesting in this certain
Uh-huh.
area, and
Yeah.
then I wound up training myself to learn what their call sounds like,
Mm-hmm.
and really got into it, and finally was able to catch a few photos of one. Yeah,
Fantastic.
it's journeys like that. They're just really what make photography incredibly fun to me.
Right. You really have to be in the right place at the right time
Hmm.
and just get lucky with your finger on the shutter,
Yeah.
basically, right?
Hmm.
And then now I remember, it seems like whenever I travel somewhere, especially internationally with my family, since my husband is an amateur photographer on the side, he'll just start talking to a complete stranger when it's like, oh, is that a Nikon or is that a Canon?
Hmm.
And so, I mean, is it sort of like a Ford versus Chevy thing, or there's so many different brands now that there isn't just like a this or that?
I don't know. I've been in quite a few photography groups that kind of like, I guess the word would be like rib each other
Oh
about
yeah,
like different brands and stuff. But in my opinion, and a lot of their opinions too, they like the brand differences don't really matter.
right.
There's pros and cons to every single one. me, I'm almost kind of locked in on the brand I shoot on. I shoot Canon, but I've
Okay.
invested a lot into the glass, into the
Exactly.
lenses,
So now you have to stick with it.
which in many cases the lenses are more expensive than the cameras themselves at
I've
this
heard
point.
that.
And
Hmm.
especially the new mirrorless ones. Oh my goodness, so much sticker shock shopping for those.
Exactly. I wonder if you could almost get them secondhand from someone who
Yeah,
was a big spender one day and
in a
then
couple
decided they could use
years,
them
because the mirrorless stuff is still rather
new.
novel. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, the mirrorless Canon stuff, at least. I know Sony's been at it for quite a few years, and I've pondered jumping ship to different
Or Fuji.
brands, and
Hmm.
yeah. But at the end of the day, if you hand me a camera, I can take a great picture with it. Even my phone, at
Right.
times, I've taken some few amazing pictures with my phone. That
Exactly.
yeah.
It's so funny because I've seen, say, vacation photos from
Hmm.
a friend, for example, where they were standing in this nearly the same spot as someone else taking the same photo, but the composition is just that much different. That one of the photos ended up being terrific, and the other photo, was kind of meh,
Hmm.
And so it's really interesting how people see the same subject in an
Hmm.
entirely different way, truly, with a different perspective. And sometimes it's just, even standing on a little step stool to get above the telephone wire or
Yeah.
to, step back and zoom in, or all these different little tricks and tips. So, what do you think as far as like if you could give a listener just even one or two tips of like how to make their photos better? Like, I always think of the rule of thirds as a
Yeah,
classic,
rule
right?
of thirds is a big one, but I love to break that rule a lot
Oh, okay.
too. For example,
And explain the rule of thirds just for someone who hasn't heard of
like
it.
probably one of the most often rule of thirds is like, say you split the camera into I guess it's nine
Nine,
parts.
right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
is there's three splits horizontally, or
Mm-hmm.
two lines horizontally splitting it into thirds, and then two vertically splitting it into thirds.
Exactly.
I gestured that in the wrong directions for
No one could
there's
see,
no
so you're
video.
safe.
Yeah. Um but a lot of times a good rule of thirds tip, like say if you have a human subject, and say you put their eye on one of the lines of the
Exactly.
thirds, and
Where they
yeah,
intersect.
it creates a
Mm-hmm.
good compositional
Exactly. Instead of just
interest.
front and center, boring. Although,
Hmm.
good old Wes Anderson, things are very
I was actually
symmetrical.
about to reference him, because I recently watched Asteroid City, and
Yes, yes.
he's really popularized, and I do this often, the central composition,
Mm-hmm.
the symmetry
Yes.
on either side. My favorite symmetrical composition being from the Sonoran Desert is to have a good saguaro cactus right in the
Yes.
center of the frame. And those are always wind up being some of my favorite shots of the year, too.
Exactly. Well, even the neon
Yeah.
saguaro on Miracle Mile or Oracle, whatever that
Yeah.
is, the neon one where you see these great photos.
Hmm.
I think one's probably yours that I've seen.
Several are mine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where you see the neon saguaro with then the whizzing by lights, but
That's
it's symmetrical and
one of
it's
my
gorgeous.
favorite spots to shoot, even though you get some weird interactions out
A
there.
little dangerous too with the
Yeah.
cars flying by, right?
Yeah.
Do you have your camera in your hand all the time so you don't miss anything? Or are there ever
Hmm.
those days where you're just like, I don't feel like taking pictures? So tell me a little bit about your motivation.
Um, I pretty much carry my camera with me at all times.
Okay.
Well, really, the best camera you have is the one you have on you.
Right. That's a good one. Yep.
And so a lot of the times I did kind of upgrade myself in a way of like just carrying my actual DSLR. Well, they call them mirrorless now,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. I still consider mirrorless DSLRs, but
Right.
that's a whole other argument. I just prefer to have like the best equipment
Sure.
available, like with me, and like whenever something amuses me, I guess would
Mm-hmm.
be a good way to say it. I like to have my camera on me for
Definitely.
photos. I remember when we were both working at Madden Media, there was a
Mm-hmm.
day where I used to be bringing my camera to work with me, and like I would take time lapses
I
out the
remember that.
window,
Mm-hmm.
and but there was one day where I just didn't bring my camera at all,
Right.
and the space shuttle
Of course.
came by and flew overhead, and I had this really old Android phone. This was so many years ago, and I had the worst cell phone pictures of the space shuttle flying over.
And you're like, why of all
And from
days?
that point on, I'm like, I should always bring my camera because something like that could happen.
Right. Because even though cell phone cameras have really come a long way, and some are absolutely amazing,
they have been bridging the gap.
Yeah. They still don't have the zoom you want to get, or something like that with the space shuttle, for example. So I know that your photography is for sale at raycleveland.com.
Yes.
But tell me more. I mean, have you ever had a gallery show or pieces in a gallery?
I've done a few galleries at. I think the first one I ever did was at this coffee shop it's now called Black Crown.
Oh, okay.
It used to be Safe House, and I basically that was like my third place, as if you will, for a long time. I met my wife there.
Oh yeah.
I would just go there all the time, and it was great to have. I remember I was hanging up a photo one day, and one of the patrons there was like, "How much is that?" And bought it like off the wall, like as I'm hanging it up. Granted, that was the only one I sold.
But hey, you sold one.
Yeah. But I've participated in a few other galleries. I currently have a print hanging up at Sun Lighting.
Oh, okay.
There's one in Casa Marana right now.
I'm not familiar with Casa Marana.
It's like a bottle shop / bar.
Oh, okay.
Out in Marana.
Oh, Marana. That's why, because I don't go there.
I think they named it to be a little parallel to Casa Video in a way, but they're not related. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, but play off of that. That's cool. You've done the portraits, done the weddings, lots of landscaping. What else seems to inspire you?
I'm always on the internet, kind of looking for other forms of photography and things to experiment with. I've long exposure photos. I'm really big fan of. There's quite a few people out there who create some really amazing light painting images and stuff like that. I've dabbled in that quite a bit, and I don't know. I'm just always looking for a new way to challenge myself, and I'm coming up with trying to come up with more original things now that I have come up with, rather than. So I've been.
Give me an example. Tell me what you're.
Well, there's one that I haven't achieved yet that I'm working on right now. Right. I don't know if I want to spill the beans.
Oh, well, then don't. Keep it to yourself.
For example, with storm chasing, or even with Milky Way photography, I try to come up with a place, then look it up and plot out, okay, what time of year will like the stars align, and I'd be able to capture this landscape with the Milky Way, or maybe do a really cool star trail photo out here.
Right.
And similar with lightning, although that is very dynamic, I try to keep a map.
Oh, do you?
Where be like, okay, the storms are coming out this way, so where could I go to get, like, where on my list could I go to try to get a cool foreground with this? Where
right, exactly.
I've gotten to the point with, like, early on it was like, oh, I just want to capture a cool bolt of lightning, and now it's like I want to
make it a true composition,
like a good foreground with it, and everything. And yeah,
you definitely do like to challenge yourself. Yeah, if you want more than just the lightning, because that in and of itself is hard really enough, hard. Right? So there you go.
They're probably my best photo of the year that I'm not likely going to top is this shot I took. I was out with a bunch of friends. Even we were out in West Speedway in the desert, and there's a really good hill that overlooks the city and everything. And I took a risk and had one of my cameras zoomed in at 200 millimeter.
Okay.
With the Tucson skyline right front center in the shot. And about 4 or 5 giant bolts of lightning struck in the middle of the shot.
Fantastic.
And yeah, I don't know if I'll ever top that, but that was also another really risky one, because at 200 millimeter, your field of view is really narrow.
Right. You got lucky.
There was a huge, like, I processed the whole time lapse of it because I shot hundreds of photos at that angle. And
Oh, I saw that. That was an amazing
oh,
video.
yeah, on my storm
Right.
chasing
That was
video.
amazing. It was gorgeous.
Yeah,
And the music that went with it was perfect. It was
yeah,
really
I've
well
been trying to
done.
work on some more of a
I'll have to
YouTube
put a link
presence.
to that
Yeah.
when I put this on Facebook just so people can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, that was really really great. But yeah, I only caught about 4 or 5 bolts of lightning. But if you watch the video, you can see the light change where they're like lightning struck over to the right or to the left
Right.
of my shot. And
That's very cool.
but that's another reason why I chase storms with multiple cameras too, so
Yeah,
I can
exactly.
actually
Well,
still.
it's like golfing. You need the putter and you need
Yeah,
the big iron or wood or whatever. Yeah,
so get more than one angle.
exactly. What else do you want to share with the listeners before we wrap it up today? Definitely let's repeat the raycleveland.com
Oh yeah,
so they can
thank you.
find your artwork. Is that the
Sometimes,
best way to find you through raycleveland.com?
yeah. I'm also on various social media platforms, but those are kind of ever changing. There's new ones and old
Right.
ones, and
And it seems like they're mostly either Ray Cleveland, like at Ray Cleveland, or
yeah,
at Ray Cleveland Photography,
yeah.
is what I
On
recall.
and also on Twitch now, I'm at Reza Fan. That's the only one that's different. I've
Okay.
pondered changing it to my name, but
Just
to
for
be consistent.
consistency, yeah.
But using your name on that platform seems a bit taboo.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that. With what is it? Twitch?
Twitch,
Yeah.
it's
I'm not
mostly a
familiar.
video game platform,
Oh, okay. That's
but
why I'm not
they
familiar with it.
they also they also have a lot of artists on
Okay.
there,
Very cool.
and it's a pretty great. I've been trying to spread the word on that to more people
Okay.
because just spending some time on there is really nice. Like you could talk to artists who are like making paintings,
Right.
and I'm on there editing photos and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
taking them, although my internet connectivity on my phone's not the greatest, so I usually pre-tape behind the scenes and then share that
Gotcha.
with
That
people.
makes sense.
But it's a really great platform where you can build a community and
Yeah, and
contact other
collaborate and just
artists. And
support
yeah,
each other. That's fantastic.
I just wish they promoted that more, that they're definitely gung-ho on the gaming stuff versus
Right.
the art
Okay.
stuff.
Right. Right. That's very interesting. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up. I'll
Hmm.
go ahead and plug Wander and Muse a bit more. Go ahead and check out wanderandmuse.world and click to subscribe on Spotify, Google Podcasts, all the different podcast stations out there. And I would love some feedback either on artists or designers you'd like me to interview, or if you have questions about this. And pretty soon here, I'm even going to be giving away prizes. So let me know, would you prefer a Wander and Muse baseball cap or would you prefer a Wander and Muse tote bag? Go ahead and email me at heather@wanderandmuse.world. Thanks so much for listening. Have a fantastic day.